but I don't see it. Oh, there it is, live on YouTube. Okay, good. I guess what we'll call the Proctor Economic Development Authority meeting for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021 to order. And I'd like to begin with a roll call if we could, please.
Commissioner Lind.
Here.
Commissioner DeWall.
Here.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer.
Here.
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Chair Madsen.
Here. Okay. And we would indicate that in the minutes that City Attorney Mr. Bray is present also. All right. I think I'd like to, if we can, forego the order of the process of the agenda at this particular point in time, and if there's no objection, jump to item 5A, which would be the installation of Commissioner DeWall, so that he'd be official and able to vote appropriately on the balance of the activity for the agenda. Could I entertain a motion for that?
I'll make the motion to seat Commissioner DeWall.
I'll second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. All right.
Chair Madsen,
Yes.
we need to do a roll call votes on these.
Chair Madsen.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Would you like to do that, or you want me to do that?
I can do that.
Okay.
Commissioner Lind.
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall.
Unmute.
He's muted.
I'm assuming I need to abstain until I'm actually seated.
Yeah.
Potentially correct.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer.
Yes.
Mayor Ward.
Yes.
Chair Madsen.
Yes. Okay. Motion passes, and I think we will proceed then with the installation of Commissioner DeWall.
Commissioner DeWall, if you would raise your right hand, please. And repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Proctor Economic Development Authority Commissioner
of Proctor Economic Development Authority Commission
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Commissioner DeWall.
Thank you.
And as long as we've foregone the agenda as it sits at this particular point in time, and given that this is a new year, it would be appropriate for us to seat individuals in the executive positions, chair, vice chair, and treasurer. And so at this point, I would entertain a motion for nominees for chair.
Eric. Don't you want to be chair again?
If you want me to be.
I do. Anybody else?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to have me continue in the position of chair. Okay. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we do a roll call vote to that.
Yes.
Commissioner Lind.
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer. Was that a yes? Yes. Okay, thank you. Mayor Ward.
Yes.
Chair Madsen.
Yes. then continue by entertaining a motion for nominees for our vice chair.
Carol, would you like to be vice chair?
I'm usually the treasurer. and I've
Okay.
Done that. But does anybody else want to be vice chair? Yeah.
Commissioner DeWall, in your new position, would you be interested in serving as vice chair?
If Commissioner Schwartzbauer is not.
I
Or
don't
you can
know.
have it, Troy.
But I would nominate Commissioner DeWall as vice chair.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote on that position.
Commissioner Lind,
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall,
Do I need to abstain from this, Attorney Bray?
No, you do not.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Mayor Ward,
Yes.
Chair Madsen.
Yes. That would leave us in a position of, as elected officer would be the treasurer. And I would nominate Commissioner Lind if she is willing to continue in that position.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion's made and second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote on that position.
Commissioner Lind,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall,
Yes.
Chair Madsen,
Yes,
Mayor Ward.
Yes.
excellent. That would leave us two positions that are not necessarily elected, but can be appointed. One would be secretary. In the past, we have asked the city administrator to act as a secretary for economic development. And I would be anxious to have that continue if there are no other people interested in acting as official secretary. I would make a motion to that effect.
I'll second that. Or make the motion.
I think a second is good.
Okay.
I did make a motion, so we'll take a roll call vote on that if we would, please.
Commissioner Lind,
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Mayor Ward,
Yes.
Chair Madsen.
Yes. And then the final position that we can appoint or have a volunteer for would be for an assistant treasurer. I don't know that we've made it official in the past, but we certainly can do so now at this particular point.
Would that be worthwhile to just to elect our director of finance or nominate our director of finance, Leslie?
You know, that's a good idea because it's a 2-signature requirement, isn't it, Jess?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she would always be she would be available in the office.
Well, and she also has the information at hand to be able to serve in that position, where the rest of us would be absolutely new to it. So between you and Leslie, they would have the information we need to make sure we do the right thing. So was that a nomination, Commissioner DeWall?
Yes, it was, Chair Madsen.
All right, I would second that nomination and entertain a roll call vote.
Commissioner Lind,
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Mayor Ward,
Yes.
Chair Madsen.
Yes. Excellent. I believe that puts us back officially in working order at this point. If that's the case, I would continue with the agenda as it's laid out with approval of the minutes from our December 8th, 2020 meeting.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion made by Mayor Ward, second by Commissioner Lind. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote on approval of the minutes from the December 8th, 2020 meeting.
Commissioner Lind,
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Mayor Ward, Chair Madsen.
Yes. All right. The next thing would be approval of the agenda. The agenda as it went out was followed with some additional items by the city administrator just very recently. We had additions to item 5, which was the new business, which was the installation of the officers. We did complete that. And we have under PEDA Secretary Advises Authority, the addition of item C, which is transportation plan presentation.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lynn, support by Commissioner DeWall. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner DeWall,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Mayor Ward,
Yes.
Chair Madsen.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll move on then with the agenda. Item 1, communications. We have nothing listed. Item 2, planning and zoning, nothing specific. Are there any reports from city administration at all that we would add there? All right. None there at all. So then we would move to item 3, PEDA Secretary Advises the Authority. Item A, 3A, Sand Salt Building Committee Report.
Thanks, Chair. The City Sand Salt Building Committee met for the first time. We tried to get the appropriate members from Parks and Rec, because we are dealing with a Parks and Rec area, City Council member, PUC members, PUC employees, of course, the street crew, planning and zoning. And the purpose of the first meeting, probably the next 2, are to come up with a recommendation on the location. We presented 2 possible locations. One was up at the fairgrounds, which that idea has been knocked around for some time. And then I also did present the Kirkus Street location as well. Are you all familiar with that? Do I need to share a map with it? Are you good? Would that be helpful?
I think we're all familiar.
Yeah.
The committee decided that they would like to look at both options. I feel right now the committee is leaning more towards the Kirkus Street location for a couple of different reasons. Eventually this isn't just the construction of the sand salt facility, it's future planning for a total public works facility, maybe even a future city hall at one point. And so we need to look at the bigger picture of many years out rather than just constructing one simple sand salt shed. Also, we talked about if you're moving the sand salt facility from a current Parks and Rec area, moving up to the campgrounds is really just trading one Parks and Rec area for another Parks and Rec area. There are some logistical reasons why the street department is leaning more towards the Kirkus Street location, as far as it's more in the center of town. The location of it, that location might be the best use of that property. But the marching orders after the meeting were for Rick to determine the size of building and a storage facility for the equipment that he would need. We're talking about maybe adding some space on and cooperating with PUC for some PUC garage space and a little bit of storage. And then also I was asked to do some research on the fair property and what we can and cannot do. And Attorney Bray, I really spent some time on the file just to get myself up to speed on the history. And from what I understand, we could put it up there if we received permission from St. Louis County.
That is correct from my perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we would receive any real resistance from the county.
Nope. In fact, I reached out to County Administrator Gray and our county commissioner, and they would have no problem bringing forth the resolution to the county board if that's the location that we decided. But I think the committee just really wanted to vet that property to make sure that we're keeping open minds to both locations. I think I know how PETA feels about it. And I guess as we move forward, we're looking for, direction to the council, recommendations to the council where this future facility, the sand salt shed and the future public works facility might go. I think that would be a helpful recommendation to the council as they make their decision.
Is that something you would look for at this particular point in time, or would this possibly be after one of the next meetings when the committee has made a resolution for particular reasons or found fault or pros or cons?
It's really up to you. It's how much you've talked about the location in the past. And, your recommendation can be solely based on economic development and development general, but, and let the committee vet the cost and all of that, I don't know where you are in the history and the discussion on it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're ready to make that recommendation, it would certainly speed things along.
I don't know if we're ready for that. Do you?
I would, from a personal perspective, I would have a personal opinion as to where it would go. From PEDA's recommendation, I would think that we've researched the Kirkus Street property for development in many different areas at this point in time, and that particular project likely would fit very well with the other things that we have ongoing for discussion. So I would find no reason to not recommend Kirkus at this particular point in time. That said, I've not done personally a ton of research on the fairgrounds, but for statements that city administrator has made about location, center of town, the likelihood of putting everything near where potentially city offices would be located, I think would make it reasonable enough for me to consider at this point making a motion to that effect. But I've not heard pros and cons from any other people on that committee. So I entertain commentary from the rest of the people on PETA here.
I would echo your sentiments, Chair Madsen. And just from what I've been hearing, I think that fairgrounds location may become more expensive than what was anticipated due to the lack of utilities up there, or no utilities up there. Also, I like the idea of having City Hall centrally located and kind of the center of our town. And I think that that Kirkus Street area would fit nicely to that long-term plan that we've discussed in the past.
I would like to know what the role of the committee that's been formed. Is it their responsibility to come up with recommendations to council and to groups like us before we make a recommendation? What is their purpose?
Sure. The intention of forming that committee is, I was hearing many different thoughts about where the sand salt shed should go. And so my thought was bringing the different departments together to come to a consensus and a recommendation for the council. Bringing in Rick's ideas of what he needs, bringing in PETA's ideas of what they have a long-term goal, bringing in Puck's ideas, what they have planned for the future. I know at that time they were planning a separate garage. So bringing them in on the facility, the building committee seemed appropriate at the time. So we're not duplicating, we're not putting, a garage in one location and a garage in another, and now we're spread out all over the city. So yes, I am looking for the committee to make a recommendation to the council, and then have input in the actual plans on it as well.
So for us, if we were to make a recommendation, that would go to that committee, this is where PETA is coming from.
Right, exactly. And then of course it would hold weight with the council as well.
Anyone willing to make a motion to offer our opinion to the Sand Salt Committee?
If I may, Chair Madsen,
Please.
I think it's important that we have our opinion unofficially. I would like to see that fact-finding committee, if you call it that, with all the different departments kind of continue their process. I know we've looked at a much longer, wider range plan, 10, 15, 20 years out, and believe as a group feel it's a better use of that land, especially due to the high line wires going through it. But I would I guess the order I was thinking of would be have the committee finish up their due diligence as what they're doing. I would like to see it reported back to PEDA before it's reported to council, which would mean we would kind of stamp it before it hits council. So then when council looks at it, they're looking at, okay, we had our committee go through the due diligence. We have PEDA on board with kind of the land use and looking at it. That's just my 2 cents. So I think unofficially, just to kind of answer your question, if you're looking for an opinion, I believe the opinion of this group is yes, but officially I don't know that we would necessarily ink it tonight until a committee goes through a couple more meetings.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm glad you're thinking of the Kirkus site because I think that's where the street department wants it, but I don't know if we've had enough input from our committee to go forward with this commission.
Yeah, I guess I'd resonate with the idea that, again, as I initially started, I've researched the Kirkus and understand, but I've not heard a real good list of pros and cons on the other site. And I would like to hear the committee's pros and cons to that before I made a final decision. So if at this point, should we take it as just information at this point and I don't think we need a motion at this point to not act. Take it as information and go forward, or do you want to vote to do as Commissioner DeWall suggested, that we delay our decision on an opinion on our part officially until we
it doesn't hurt us to table it. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to have more meetings.
Right.
It can be just for information purposes as well. It's just helpful for me to know where other departments and commissions and committees sit on this, so I can give that information to the committee.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just make the recommendation that we table it for this particular point for this meeting until we hear back from the committee, pros and cons on the other piece of property. Do we need a motion to do that?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Could we move on then to item 3B, tax abatement policy?
So I don't know if PEDA has ever used this economic development tool, but I just wanted to present it to you. I've been doing some research on it. This is just information only if it's something that you're interested in me and pursuing. Chair Madsen and I did talk about some other policies and application procedures. Typically, like things like TIF and tax abatement come to you with an application. And I just feel it might be a useful tool that we could start implementing now. So the day that someone does knock on the door and want to use a tool like this, we have the policy and the information in our handbag, so to speak.
FYI, the city has used the tax abatement policy in the past, not too far back. The Kingsbury Housing Development utilized a tax abatement policy for a number of years to generate some new housing. And that's not too far back. But again, it's a good reminder that the policy is available. And again, I take it FYI that getting our ducks in a row so that these things would be readily available if the opportunity arose for us to be able to use, to make sure we know the policy, the procedure, and have the appropriate paperwork in file on hand.
I would encourage commission members to go out on the web and look at the City of Grand Rapids Economic Development Authority webpage. It's very impressive. Of course, they have an EDA director that works full time, but I think there's a lot of, that's the most impressive one I've seen. And I would eventually like us to get even a quarter of what they have on their website. I would like to have on ours. So I encourage you to take a look at it and look at their policies, and they have listings of property that are for sale, either by owner or by listings, and people who want to sell their property can register that with the Grand Rapids EDA, and it's an interactive map that people can go back and forth in. So take a look at it and let me know what you think.
Oh, I appreciate that heads up. That sounds really interesting. Thank you. Okay, item 3C, transportation plan presentation.
Great. The mayor, you were at a meeting tonight.
I was, and they shared this video with the MIC, and it was just so everyone in PEDA knows it was accepted by the MIC. So
Okay, I'm going to attempt to share this with you. This gives you, so this was a transportation plan study that was done by the Duluth Superior Metropolitan Interstate Commission and their Transportation Advisory Committee. So this is a plan that they've been seeking public input, and I will attempt to share this with you. And I cannot get sound on it.
that's you.
Bless you.
Mhm.
I don't know if that I have.
I wonder if Ted has to give you permission to share. Does he have to give you the ability to share?
You're seeing it now.
Okay, there we go.
And I'm just hoping that I can get sound with it too. I cannot. I'm not that techie, I'm sorry. I will send you the link to it.
Okay.
Yes, it
And
looked like your video was muted on the screen.
my video on this on
On the YouTube video, it looked next to the play bar, it looked like it was muted.
okay, I'll try one more time. I don't think it is now, Ted. Okay, we're gonna call that a failure.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I will share the link to you. It is on the city's website. If you go on
Yeah.
our page
I
and you go
was,
down.
I was actually just looking at their economic development authority website. I didn't see any policy, but it might be on the city website.
On the city's website, this,
Grand Rapids.
oh, okay, yeah, it might be.
Okay,
So
good.
as far as this transportation plan, you want to just go on the city's homepage and down at the bottom, there's a link to this video. And I think it would be useful for you to take a look at. What this plan does is, and it's already been, just today we started working on a grant application and looking into a 2024-25 Second Street project. And this document really helps us move forward with it. It confirms that the community had input that Second Street needs to be done. It identifies all the players that need to be a part of it. And it's a document that we can take to funders to get some movement on some street projects, major street projects. So I encourage you to take a look at that.
Okay. I thank you for that. Mr. Mayor, any additional commentary?
I do not. It's a 4-minute video, and Jess did a good job explaining that. So,
All right. See if everyone can, between now and our next meeting, if all of us could maybe review that, and if it warrants additional discussion or ideas on our end, we could share. Acceptable? Okay. Move on the agenda then to item 4, unfinished business. Item 4A is the Lamar update. I will share with you that I have had additional conversation with the powers that be at Lamar locally, gotten them to pay very much attention to our latest offer for the property, and got them to seriously consider, okay, not just to kind of just know that we were in the background, to seriously consider the offer that we've laid out. They looked at the original offer for us to pursue the 5-acre purchase. They looked at the offer for us to purchase the approximately 40% of the 5-acre property so that we would have access for road easement. And they had entertained that idea of holding the balance of the property for them to create additional storage for the business. In between times and looking, they were vandalized at their property right next to their store, had items stolen, and kind of swayed them to say, how are we going to supervise or protect our building up above or storage up above? And so if we can't protect the building that's, right along the highway and, can't keep things from being stolen there. So consequently, they locally came to the conclusion that they would rather recommend to their home office that the home office sell us the appropriate 5 acres total. Okay. And just let them vacate, just vacate and sign the property over to us. That then brought up the discussion of what the price point would be. And local management said that their concern for our benefit is that St. Louis County has that property valued at, I'm trying to remember now if it was $90,000. It was an extreme dollar amount. Commissioner DeWall might remember, Jess, you might remember too, but it was a large amount. And they, in the meantime, had done some research to find out that adjoining properties with similar or even a slight bit more acreage were being taxed at $16,000. And that approximate 1 acre lots coming up Waterview Drive were valued at $2,000 a piece. And yet they had a 5 acre piece of property that was well into the 90s. And so they're concerned about how the home office is going to consider the appropriate price for us to be able to try to buy that piece of land. They're well aware that they missed what's the official name for the tax meeting that I'm thinking about, where they could have negotiated their taxes away a little bit.
Local Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Yeah, they were that they missed that, and after looking at adjoining properties, realized that it could have been to their benefit to have worked in that scenario. So question arises as to whether or not they might at some point in time, for their benefit, try to go next year's Board of Appeals to see if they could get the tax appraisal reduced. or whether or not we could just negotiate something with the company at a more reasonable offer than what the property is appraised at this particular point in time. Left the conversation with the management here locally, running that information to their home office, looking for an opinion from them as to whether or not they would be willing to sell it, and to sell it for something much more reasonable than the currently appraised value. So I'm waiting to hear back from that conversation. Questions on that? Suggestions or ideas?
Chair Madsen, I can also check in with the assessor. Sometimes administratively, they can make changes if we bring them up, if the city brings them up, they can administratively make changes without hearing an appeal at the local Board of Appeal level. So I'll touch base with the county assessor to point out that the assessment may be out of whack.
I was just looking at the Coney Land Explorer, Jess and Chair Madsen.
Yes.
That end piece on the end of the cul-de-sac that is owned, I mean, you're talking $16,000. The 1 acre parcels are at $2,600, and that 5 acre is at $91,500. So there's obviously a mix up somewhere. And those 1 acre parcels they're shovel ready parcels.
Right.
Where this 5 acre is not shovel ready.
Correct.
So I believe, but I kind of get where the local home office is going, because the corporate office is going to look at valuations of what they pay. And so if we come in with a respected offer, they're going to say, well, why is it so low when it's worth this?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of get the argument.
Yep. And right now at this particular point, local management's in favor of selling it to us, so is willing to work with home office. So as much support as we might be able to offer, it would be to our benefit, I think, to be able to move this thing forward. So.
I'm just showing that assessment change, and you can see here between 18 and 19. For some reason, it doubled.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that
I think it doubled once before 17. I think it was in the mid 20s before it went up in 2017 to 46,000, I believe. But regardless, it's a double.
I believe that's just an error. They had some new people back in 2018 going through our city for a reappraisal type, both commercial and residential. And that's, unfortunately, that was just an error made that nobody came to the local board to appeal it. Mm-hmm. And so it's just stayed there. But I would assume a conversation with Sean Worthington might help ease that a little bit.
Agreed. So Jess, you were willing to make that contact and see what we could come up with?
Of course.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Anything that you could get back in our favor, if you'd apprise me of that, I would take that to the local management to try and move this activity along. Thank you. All right. We already operated under 5A for our election of officers and installation of Commissioner DeWall. That would move us to the agenda, item 6, economic development. And I would entertain a motion under Minnesota Statutes 13D to close this meeting for negotiations. John, you're talking, but you're muted.
I'll make that motion.
Wait a minute.
Second.
I have to add something, and I never add the right thing.
We're talking non-public economic development data. So let's add that.
Add that. There's a term there that I never remember to put in there. That's why he's here.
I'm going to email that to you.
Thank you very much. That would be appreciated. So I'd entertain that motion.
Make a motion to go into closed session under Minnesota State Statute 13D05 for economic development.
Second.
Motion made a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lind. Commissioner DeWall,
Yes.
Mayor Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartzbauer,
Yes.
Chair Matson.
Yes. All right, now we just need Ted to help us get to closed positioning here.
We have to wave at him,
Yeah, we were supposed to do a bunch of waving and Jess was gonna text.
or maybe Jess is probably texting.
No,
Probably gonna do-
I can hear you. I'm home. I'm just I had to get the dog in the house. So you're gonna go to closed session now, correct?
Correct.
All right. So now this is once I stop the YouTube, which let me do that.